Okay, and so the second thing I just want to talk about is tradition allows you to know the unknowable. Okay, so that's not a typo. This is an example. So this is traditional processing of maize in Latin America. So you take dried corn, dried maize, you boil it for 40 minutes, and then you're going to take it out of the water, strain it, and then mash it up into dough or masa, and then have tortillas or other kind of yummy food. But what you do before you boil it is you put a bunch of ash in the water, or you put some certain types of dirt in the water. And no one really knew why. They said, oh, it tastes better, or this is the way my grandmother taught me, this is the way my mother taught me. So it turns out if you have a diet that's primarily maize, which societies that had this method were, that you'll get something called pellagra. So maize doesn't have enough niacin. You'll get skin rashes, dementia, and then you'll die if it's bad enough. And it turns out this is called alkali processing. It breaks down the existing amount of niacin that's in the corn and allows your body to absorb it. And that's because there's lime, basically, in the water. So an alkali base solution is formed. And nobody knew why. So it was just that this evolved in those places. And then there's a 1974 Science article that documents exactly where it was beneficial is where this cooking method formed. And there's lots of other examples of food cultures having this characteristic. So what's happening basically is through an evolutionary process, beneficial cultural traits are being passed on from one generation to another generation. Okay? And what do you need for this to work? Well, the belief that it's important to do things the way your parents did, or the belief that tradition is important, and by doing that, you can actually do better than someone who is rational. So a rational person would have never been able to figure this out, right? So even an example of this is maize is indigenous to the Americas. Columbus discovers the Americas. Maize is brought back to Europe, northern Italy, Lesotho, even the southern US, which didn't have maize prior. And people, particularly poor people, start eating a ton of maize. But the culture, the technology was not brought back, right? And so people developed pellagra. They didn't know why. They thought it was because the maize was moldy. And it wasn't until much, much later, 1930, that they actually eventually figured this out, okay?